Look no further than Chick-fil-A, because they have a summer camp that's really more like a labor camp.
The far right attacked, and within days I was canceled.
Hi, you won against Ms. Rowling.
The Fringe Left's latest attack on Chick-fil-A, a conservative example of cancel culture, and woke TikTok celebrates the supposed downfall of JK Rowling. All this and so much more is coming up on today's episode of Brad vs. Everyone, my daily podcast where I take on the craziest ideas from across the internet and across our politics from a center-right, independent perspective. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and sticking around. We're building a great community here. We don't bite. And if you're a returning viewer, you know what I'm about to say. Don't forget to smash that like button and do comment with your thoughts as we go along. I read the comments and I pick a few to respond to in every episode. Now up first, we've got to talk about the one and only Chick-fil-A. Because even though they make some of the most delicious fast food, I just had some of that kale crunch and chicken nuggets and the waffle potato fries last night, and ooh, it hit the spot. For whatever reason, the fringe far left really hates Chick-fil-A. They've gone nuts at them over the years on the gay stuff that I've discussed before. But there's a new outrage mob by very online leftists being waged against Chick-fil-A, and it is incredibly stupid. So the controversy is stemming from a summer camp that a select few Chick-fil-A locations are offering for kids. Let's take a look at some local news coverage.
Chick-fil-A restaurant in Hammond gets overwhelming attention on social media after announcing a summer camp for kids. The Chick-fil-A there announced it's holding that summer camp at the end of July, where kids will learn a variety of skills, including learning how to take a guest's order and how to bag the food. That raised some eyebrows, with the Facebook announcement receiving thousands of comments claiming the chain was exploiting the children for free labor. The camp is advertised as 6 sessions to choose from, ideal for kids ages 5 through 12, and it costs $35, which includes a kid's meal, t-shirt, name tag, and snack. Some users supported the idea, with one person commenting they thought it was a fun way for their child to learn work ethic. A representative with Chick-fil-A corporate says the camp is not an official program, and that there is a chain that in Texas that has offered a popular summer camp for years.
This lighthearted news story has been met with an absolutely unhinged backlash by fringe parts of the left wing online. One person tweeted about this: "Capitalism is a disease." A local news outlet wrote a headline called "Introduce Your Kids to Late Stage Capitalism." And a TikToker posted this viral video with the caption, "They're bringing back child labor."
To give your kids something to do this summer? Sign them up for Chick-fil-A summer camp. Yes, this is real. Ideal for kids ages 5 to 12. $35 per child includes this stuff. Activities include dining room host and customer service skills, taking a guest order, bagging a guest order. We only accept 30 kids per session, so sign up quickly. Yeah, I'm sure kids want to jump right at this. Capitalism is a hell of a drug.
So while leftist TikTok might find the idea that anyone actually finds enterprise or work cool totally alien, a lot of kids and families apparently are drawn to this because these programs keep selling out. Here's a clip of one mom explaining why she sent her daughter to this camp, speaking to a local news outlet.
Very exciting, I'm sure, not only for you, but for her as well.
Yes, she's very excited. She woke up very early this morning, just getting ready. So we made it here.
How did you find out about this camp?
Well, my niece did it last summer and had a really good time. It's actually pretty difficult to sign up because they sell out pretty quick. So this year I got on the computer really early just to make sure Chloe could attend. But it's a really fun time. She had a great experience last summer.
The backlash hasn't just been on social media. The progressive political commentator Anna Kasparian similarly railed against this as supposedly a form of child labor.
Chick-fil-A, like most fast food chains, is a franchise. And so each franchisee is able to engage with the community as they see fit. I'm sure there are some restrictions, but certainly no restrictions when it comes to child labor camps. And look, it's not like they're making these kids do like super hard labor. I don't want to like engage in hyperbole and make you guys think I'm being ridiculous, but this isn't a summer camp. This isn't like some fun, oh, they're going to go swimming and they're going to do fun things with their friends. This is essentially a pipeline for fast food workers. And the age here really concerns me because we're not talking about teenagers. We're talking about 5 to 12-year-olds. Like, it's insane.
So I just have to say that I find this outrage laughable and absurd. First, let's be extremely clear about what we're talking about here. We're talking about kids going into Chick-fil-A for like 3 hours for a day program for a couple of days. They are not being sent to the mines. These kids, age 5 to 12, are essentially shadowing along with employees, learning how to do the kinds of things that they do. And for just $30 to $35, the parents get multiple hours of childcare, which is worth its weight in gold if you've spoken to any parents lately, and their kids get name tags, t-shirts, meals, and snacks. The horror! The outrage is just so dumb. For one, if you don't like this, if you think it's child labor or whatever, don't sign your kid up for it. Nobody's making you. And frankly, I think most of the online leftists who are complaining about this don't actually have kids. But regardless, calling this child labor is absurd. The kids are essentially tagging along and learning how things work behind the scenes at one of their favorite restaurants. The company is not profiting from their labor, as I promise you, whatever a 6-year-old can produce in terms of labor is worth far less than the employee time they're going to be dedicating to supervising these kids. Anyway, the phrase child labor invokes kids being sent to work long shifts in dangerous mills where harmful machinery would often rip off body parts. To use that to describe little Timmy sitting behind the counter eating chicken nuggets is ludicrous. And while kids obviously shouldn't be doing hard labor or neglecting their education, there's actually not anything wrong with exposing them to work from an early age or teaching them the values and of hard work and a work ethic. In fact, I would even say that we don't do nearly enough of that these days. I mean, today's kids often look to idiotic internet pranksters or vapid pop stars as cool and for their role models. If some kids are instead looking at hardworking everyday Americans running a restaurant and working hard to serve their community and earn a livelihood as cool and something to aspire to, and yes, even if they want to learn from them at a summer camp, that's something that should be celebrated, not condemned. But that's just my take on all this. Let me know in the comments what you think and if you would send your kid to Chick-fil-A for a couple of hours of child labor. Up next, we've got to talk about an example of Christian conservatives engaging in cancel culture. I've long followed a writer and speaker named David French. David is an old school conservative who worked at the conservative magazine National Review for many years, but he split from the mainstream conservative movement due to his hardcore opposition to Donald Trump. I myself have never been fully on board with the level of French's antipathy for the former president and his criticisms. I'm not all on board with, but I've always found him an interesting person and I've respected his commitment to civil liberties. However, he's become something of a boogeyman on the right for being a dissident voice on Trump and within Christian circles. So much so that he was now deplatformed from an event at his former church because of online outrage mobs. Does that behavior sound familiar, guys? Anyway, let's take a look at some coverage from MSNBC.
New York Times opinion columnist David French has a new piece out entitled "The Day My Old Church Canceled Me Was a Very Sad Day." And in it he writes this: "This week, the leaders of the Presbyterian Church in America will gather in Richmond, Virginia for their annual General Assembly. The Presbyterian Church in America is a small, theologically conservative Christian denomination that was my family's church home for more than 15 years. It just canceled me. I am now deemed too divisive to speak to a gathering of Christians who share my faith."
We saw the denomination invite me back to speak to share how we responded to some of these really, really polarized moments. And then the far right attacked, and within days I was canceled.
So David French was disinvited from an event where he was originally scheduled to speak at with his former church because of outrage from the far right online. As he explained in a New York Times column, the instant my participation was announced, these attacks started up again. There were misleading essays, vicious tweets, letters, and even a parody song directed at the denomination and me. The message was clear. Get him off the stage. French continues, and that's what the conference organizers chose to do. They didn't just cancel me, they canceled the entire panel. But the reason was obvious. My presence would raise concerns about the peace and unity of the church. That is the line they went with. The peace and unity of the church needing to be preserved by caving to outrage mobs. My thoughts on this are incredibly simple. You don't have to like David French, you don't have to agree with any of his opinions, but he is indisputably an influential and important voice in mainstream media, in Christian politics, in conservative intellectual spheres, and the idea that he's so polarizing he can't be allowed to speak at a panel is pathetic snowflake safetyism from the right. But he supports gay marriage being legal. But he defends the free speech rights of Drag Queen Story Hour. Okay. Cope and seethe, Cupcake. These same types will complain about liberal snowflakes, then are acting like them. I just have no sympathy whatsoever for the desire to silence commentators you dislike, rather than engage with them or critique their ideas. I just don't. And I find it particularly frustrating coming from the right, who is supposed to know better than this. If you consider yourself a conservative, but you suddenly find yourself parroting the same safetyism language of the left to try to silence a dissident voice from your own side, you should stop yourself, check yourself, and really reflect on what you're doing. Because somewhere along the line, you've gone horribly astray. That's just my take. You guys feel free to disagree with me. Let me know in the comments below. And now, it's time for Brad versus TikTok, my daily segment where I take on the craziest ideas from across the clock app.
Pronoun of the day is slugs.
Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet, and don't forget to hit that like button to reward my suffering as I lose brain cells in real time for your viewing pleasure. Now today, we're going to take a look at a far left fringe TikToker who is celebrating the supposed demise of JK Rowling. Jump scare warning.
Hi, you won against Ms. Rowling. No, it hasn't quite happened yet, and this is conjecture and rumor. But there's a person named Jeffrey Schneider who's an insider in film and television. And in his newsletter, he said that Warner Brothers has been trying to buy the Harry Potter franchise from JK Rowling because largely because the actors refuse to do another project unless she's gone because of her transphobic comments. So because of boycotts, because of you speaking up, because of you making her views, her bigotry a liability, she's starting to pay the price. Thank you so much for caring. Thank you so much for caring. It is working. Keep it up.
This is so unhinged, and it's also not accurate whatsoever. First, any actors who would refuse to work with Rowling just because they disagree with her views on gender are ridiculous. Be an adult. You should be able to work with people who have different viewpoints than you on work totally unrelated to these questions. And again, people online and in the LGBT community do not have to agree with all of Rowling's views. I don't agree with all of them. I think she's taken an increasingly hardline approach on trans issues that goes far further than I do. But I'll just never understand the desire to destroy her career over it. But anyway, the most hilarious part of this is one that this is all like very thinly sourced reporting. There's no serious, credible journalism that she's about to be forced out of the Harry Potter universe because she owns all the rights to the books. Almost nothing can be done related to them without her say-so. And even what Jeffrey Marsh is discussing in this video would be a buyout where they buy it from her for an obscene amount of money. She's already one of the world's richest people and she'd be getting exponentially richer. Sick own, Jeffrey. You guys really got her. And that's if this even happens, which I don't think it will. And it's not been really reported by credible sources yet. I want to again recommend that people check out the podcast series, The Witch Trials of JK Rowling, where the Free Press did a deep dive into the controversy over her. They interviewed her at length. You can hear what her actual views are and what her experiences has been like. And if you're like me, you won't agree with everything she's said and done, but you'll also realize she's not some evil, maniacal villain, and the campaign against her has been ridiculous. That's just my take. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And now, before we wrap up today's show, I'll read a few of your comments that y'all left on the last episode. One person says, as a lifelong environmentalist, I need to say, with friends like climate defiance, who needs enemies? I feel for you, honestly. If I didn't know better, I would suspect that all these crazy radical green groups, the climate defiance, the Extinction Rebellion, the ones that are doing these things that just piss people off and make their cause less popular, like blocking bridges and blocking traffic or storming the field at the congressional baseball game. If I was putting my tinfoil hat on, I would say like they must be like oil industry plants, because you couldn't design activists better suited to sabotage the cause of the climate and the green agenda than these people. So I feel for you on that one, my friend. Another person writes, Brad, I always describe you to friends and family as an out gay man who leans conservative but calls out BS on either side and thinks capitalism is pretty neat. I don't know if I'd use the word conservative so much to describe myself, but that does sound pretty accurate to me. And thank you so much for recommending me or the show to friends and family. That's one of the biggest ways that shows like this can grow. So please do that if you know somebody in your life who might enjoy my content. By the way, the Brad vs. Everyone podcast is now available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so you can subscribe and listen there as well. Another person says, do you use a filter or something? Your skin is always incredibly clear and looks great, like 100% of the time. Oh, and I love your channel. You really do your best to be unbiased and look at things through a fair point of view. I appreciate that, especially nowadays. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And honestly, I've talked about this before, but I don't really do a whole lot of skincare. I wash my face daily with like a shower facial scrub, and I moisturize my face once or twice a day. But I don't use any of these like advanced expensive products or anything, and I actually think maybe they work for some people, but less can be more. Another person says, Brad, pressing question. Have you ever been Superman for Halloween? You know why I'm asking. I actually don't know why you're asking, and no, I haven't. Although I have been a taco, and that costume could absolutely get me canceled. Another person writes, it isn't that I like seeing you upset, but I love the passion you have against the stupidity sometimes. I hope you're doing all right, Brad. Thank you. Yes, I am doing more than all right, but I have to unplug for large swaths of time, going on walks or on the weekends, and just step away from the internet, because if I kept scrolling and looking at these people for too long, I actually would lose brain cells. I joke about that a lot, but it actually would do brain damage to me if I didn't step away for periods of time. But I'm pretty good about doing that. All right, everybody, that's it for today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not yet. Don't forget to hit that like button, and please comment with your thoughts. I do read the comments, and I pick a few to respond to in every episode. With that, we'll talk again on Monday.